Conflict used to energize you. When you were younger, disagreements came with adrenaline, passion, the drive to fight for your position and resolve things quickly. But now, after 40, conflict feels different. It exhausts you. A single argument drains you for days. Disagreements at work, tension with your partner, friction with family members. They don't just upset you, they deplete you completely. You find yourself avoiding conflict altogether, swallowing frustration, walking away from situations that need addressing because the energy required to engage feels impossible to summon. The recovery time gets longer. After a fight, you're irritable, distracted, unable to sleep. Your body holds the stress long after the words have stopped. You wonder why conflict affects you so differently now. Is it age? Is it burnout? Is it just you? Or does everyone feel this way? The truth is, conflict becomes exhausting after 40, not because you're weaker, but because you're carrying decades of unresolved tension, unprocessed emotions, and patterns of engagement that no longer serve you. Your nervous system is overloaded. Your emotional reserves are depleted. And unless you learn to navigate conflict differently, it will continue to drain you until there's nothing left. Here's the paradox. You have more life experience, more emotional intelligence, and more perspective than you did at 20, yet conflict drains you more now than it ever did when you were young and reactive. You've learned patience, empathy, and the art of choosing your battles. You understand nuance in ways your younger self never could. But despite all this wisdom, a single disagreement leaves you exhausted for days. The skills you've accumulated should make conflict easier to navigate, but instead, they seem to make it harder. Why? The answer lies in accumulation. By 40, you're not just dealing with the conflict in front of you. You're carrying decades of unresolved conflicts behind you. Every argument you avoided, every resentment you swallowed, every tension you walked away from without resolution, those didn't disappear. They lodged themselves in your body, your nervous system, your emotional baseline. Now, when new conflict arises, it activates all that old, unprocessed material. What looks like a simple disagreement about household chores or work responsibilities is actually triggering layers of accumulated stress, old wounds, and patterns you developed long ago to survive difficult situations. Your body remembers every conflict you've endured, even if your conscious mind has moved on. The fight with your parents in your 20s, the toxic work environment you endured in your 30s, the betrayals, the disappointments, the times you had to defend yourself or suppress your anger to keep the peace. These experiences shaped your nervous system's response to conflict. Now, your body reacts to disagreement as if it's a threat to your survival, flooding you with cortisol and adrenaline even when the stakes are objectively low. You're not overreacting. You're responding to a lifetime of unhealed conflict. The paradox deepens because the strategies that helped you survive conflict in your youth now make it more exhausting. You learn to people please, to avoid confrontation, to suppress your needs to maintain harmony. These coping mechanisms protected you once, but now they trap you. You can't avoid conflict forever, and when you're forced to engage, you do so from a place of depletion rather than strength. You've spent so much energy managing other people's emotions, preventing explosions, and keeping the peace that you have nothing left for yourself. The conflict exhausts you, Not because it's inherently draining, but because you approach it already running on empty. Stopping conflict from exhausting you after 40 begins with understanding why it drains you in the first place. The exhaustion isn't weakness. It's your nervous system responding to decades of accumulated stress. The first shift is recognizing that your body is holding unresolved conflict from your past. Every time you suppressed anger to keep the peace, every time you walked away from an argument that needed resolution, every time you prioritized someone else's comfort over your own boundaries, your body recorded those moments. Now, when conflict arises, your nervous system treats it as dangerous because it remembers all the times conflict meant pain, rejection, or loss. Understanding this helps you approach conflict with compassion for yourself. You're not broken. You're carrying weight that needs to be released. The second shift is learning to regulate your nervous system during conflict. When disagreement begins, your body floods with stress hormones. Your heart races, your breathing shallows, your thoughts spiral. In this state, conflict becomes exponentially more exhausting because you're fighting your own physiology as much as the actual issue. The antidote is conscious regulation. When you feel conflict escalating, pause. Take 3 deep breaths, expanding your belly on each inhale. This signals your nervous system that you're safe. Ground yourself by noticing physical sensations, your feet on the floor, the chair supporting you. This pulls you out of reactive mode and into presence. If you need to, take a break. Say, I need 10 minutes to collect myself and step away. This isn't avoidance. It's self-regulation. When you return, you'll engage from a calmer place, and the conflict will drain you less. The third shift is releasing the belief that you must resolve every conflict immediately. This urgency is what exhausts you. You feel pressure to fix things now, to make the other person understand, to reach resolution before you can rest. But not every conflict can or should be resolved quickly. Some disagreements need time to process. Some require multiple conversations. Some will never fully resolve, and that's okay. When you release the demand for immediate resolution, you reduce the pressure you put on yourself. You can engage with conflict in smaller doses, addressing what can be addressed now and leaving the rest for later. This pacing prevents exhaustion. You're not avoiding the issue. You're managing your energy. The fourth shift is setting boundaries around how much conflict you'll tolerate. Some people thrive on drama, seeking conflict as a way to feel alive or exert control. If you're in relationship with someone like this, a partner, family member, co-worker, you need to establish limits. You don't have to engage every time they provoke you. You can say, I'm not available for this conversation right now, or I'm willing to discuss this calmly, but if it becomes an argument, I'm stepping away. This isn't controlling them. It's protecting yourself. Boundaries are essential after 40 because your energy is finite. You can't afford to let other people's need for conflict drain your reserves. The fifth shift is addressing old, unresolved conflicts that are amplifying new ones. This work is difficult but necessary. Maybe there's a conversation you've been avoiding for years with a parent, sibling, or old friend. Maybe there are resentments from your past relationship that still simmer. Maybe there's anger at yourself for choices you made decades ago. These unresolved conflicts don't disappear. They accumulate and make every new conflict heavier. You need to address them, either through direct conversation, therapy, journaling, or ritual. The goal isn't necessarily reconciliation, it's release. You're clearing the backlog so that present conflicts don't carry the weight of the past. The sixth shift is redefining what conflict means. You've been conditioned to see conflict as bad, as something to avoid or minimize. But conflict, when handled well, is simply two people with different needs or perspectives trying to find a way forward. It's not inherently threatening, it's information. When you stop treating conflict as a crisis and start treating it as communication, it becomes less frightening and therefore less draining. You approach disagreements with curiosity instead of dread. You ask, what is this conflict trying to teach us? Instead of, how do I make this stop? This reframe doesn't eliminate the difficulty, but it reduces the emotional charge, and that makes conflict more manageable. The seventh shift is recognizing which conflicts are worth your energy. Not every battle deserves to be fought. Some conflicts are meaningful. They address real issues, protect important boundaries, or advocate for your needs. Others are pointless. Power struggles, ego clashes, or arguments about things that don't actually matter. After 40, you need to develop discernment. Before engaging in conflict, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will engaging change anything? What am I hoping to achieve? If the answer is nothing, or I just want to be right, let it go. Save your energy for conflicts that actually matter. This isn't apathy, it's wisdom. You're choosing where to invest your limited resources. The eighth shift is processing emotions as they arise instead of stockpiling them. Much of your exhaustion comes from carrying suppressed emotions. You get angry, but don't express it. You feel hurt, but pretend you're fine. You're disappointed, but swallow it to avoid conflict. These emotions don't evaporate. They accumulate, creating internal pressure that exhausts you. The antidote is emotional honesty in the moment. When you feel anger, acknowledge it. You don't have to lash out, but you can say, I'm feeling angry about this. When you're hurt, name it. This vulnerability feels risky, but it prevents the slow buildup of unprocessed emotion that makes future conflicts unbearable. You're addressing feelings as they happen instead of carrying them for years. The ninth shift is cultivating recovery practices after conflict. You can't prevent all exhaustion, but you can reduce recovery time. After a difficult conversation or argument, tend to yourself deliberately. Move your body, walk, stretch, shake out the tension. Breathe deeply to reset your nervous system. Talk to a friend who can hold space without judgment. Journal to process what happened. Rest without guilt. Eat nourishing food. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Your nervous system needs active recovery after conflict, especially after 40 when your reserves are lower. When you prioritize recovery, conflict still drains you, but it doesn't destroy you. You bounce back faster and feel less depleted overall. The 10th shift is building your emotional reserves during peacetime. If you're constantly depleted, every conflict will exhaust you. But if you regularly replenish your energy, you'll have reserves to draw from when conflict arises. This means prioritizing rest, joy, connection, and activities that restore you. It means saying no to obligations that drain you unnecessarily. It means protecting time for solitude, creativity, nature, whatever fills your well. When your baseline energy is higher, conflict still costs you, but it doesn't bankrupt you. You have capacity to engage without collapsing afterward. This preventive work is just as important as how you handle conflict itself. The 11th shift is recognizing when to walk away permanently. Some conflicts can't be resolved because the other person isn't interested in resolution. They're interested in domination, punishment, or chaos. If you're in a relationship with someone who consistently engages in toxic conflict patterns, gaslighting, manipulation, verbal abuse, or refusal to take accountability, you need to consider whether the relationship is sustainable. Walking away isn't failure, it's self-preservation. After 40, you don't have unlimited energy to waste on people who drain you without reciprocating care. Sometimes the healthiest response to exhausting conflict is removing yourself from the situation entirely. This applies to friendships, family relationships, and even marriages that have become irreparably toxic. The 12th shift is embracing the reality that conflict will always require energy, and that's okay. You're not trying to eliminate exhaustion entirely. You're trying to make it manageable. Conflict, especially meaningful conflict about things that matter, will always take something from you. The goal isn't to reach a point where disagreement feels easy. The goal is to engage with conflict in ways that don't destroy you, to recover more quickly, to carry less unresolved tension, and to choose which conflicts deserve your limited energy. This acceptance reduces the frustration of feeling drained. You stop judging yourself for being exhausted and instead honor the reality that navigating differences is hard work, worthy of rest and recovery. When you learn to stop conflict from exhausting you after 40, the relief touches every corner of your life. The first benefit is immediate. You have more energy. Conflict no longer drains you for days. You engage with disagreements when necessary, regulate your nervous system during them, and recover more quickly afterward. This means you're not constantly depleted. You have energy for work, relationships, hobbies, rest, the things that actually matter. The chronic fatigue that came from carrying unresolved tension lifts. You sleep better. You wake up with capacity instead of already running on empty. This restored energy transforms your quality of life. Your relationships improve dramatically. When conflict isn't so exhausting, you're more willing to address issues as they arise instead of avoiding them until they explode. You engage in difficult conversations from a place of strength rather than depletion. This leads to more honest, healthier relationships. Your partner, family members, and friends feel heard because you're not too drained to listen. Resentments don't build because you address problems early. Relationships that might have crumbled under the weight of unspoken tension now thrive because you've learned to navigate disagreement without destroying yourself in the process. Your mental health stabilizes. The constant anxiety that comes from avoiding conflict or dreading its aftermath diminishes. You're not spending mental energy rehearsing arguments, replaying conversations, or worrying about the next confrontation. Your mind is quieter. You're more present because you're not constantly processing old conflicts or bracing for new ones. The depression that often accompanies chronic exhaustion lifts when you stop burning through your emotional reserves every time disagreement arises. You feel more like yourself, calmer, clearer, more capable. Your physical health benefits too. Chronic stress from unresolved and exhausting conflict wreaks havoc on your body, raising blood pressure, weakening your immune system, disrupting digestion, causing headaches and tension. When you learn to manage conflict without depleting yourself, your body relaxes. The physical symptoms of stress diminish. You get sick less often. Chronic pain that was exacerbated by tension eases. Your body isn't constantly flooded with stress hormones, and that allows it to function optimally. The connection between emotional regulation and physical health becomes undeniable. You gain confidence in your ability to handle difficulty. For years, you've avoided conflict because it felt overwhelming. Now, you know you can engage with it and survive. This confidence extends beyond conflict. It makes you more resilient in every area of life. You're less afraid of difficult conversations, challenging situations, or uncertain outcomes. You trust yourself to manage whatever arises. This self-trust is empowering. It reminds you that you're not fragile, not broken, not incapable. You're strong enough to face conflict without it destroying you. Your boundaries become clearer and firmer. When conflict isn't so draining, you're more willing to enforce limits. You stop tolerating behavior that exhausts you. You walk away from toxic dynamics instead of enduring them out of fear or obligation. You protect your energy fiercely because you know how precious it is. This selectivity improves your life immensely. You surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, and you let go of those who don't. The quality of your relationships improves because you're no longer willing to sacrifice your well-being for false peace. Perhaps most importantly, you reclaim your life from the grip of conflict avoidance. For years, you've organized your existence around not upsetting people, not creating tension, not rocking the boat. This has made you small, silent, and resentful. Now, you engage with life fully. You speak up when something bothers you. You advocate for your needs. You participate in difficult conversations instead of hiding from them. This isn't reckless or combative. It's authentic. You're no longer controlled by fear of conflict because you know it won't destroy you. And that freedom is transformative. Conflict doesn't have to destroy you. The exhaustion you feel isn't a life sentence. It's a signal that something needs to change. You're carrying decades of unprocessed tension, engaging with conflict from a depleted baseline, and using strategies that once protected you, but now trap you. This can change. It must change, because you don't have unlimited energy to waste on conflict that leaves you devastated for days. You deserve to navigate disagreement without sacrificing your well-being. The shifts required aren't easy. Regulating your nervous system takes practice. Setting boundaries invites pushback. Addressing old wounds requires courage. Processing emotions in real time feels vulnerable. But the alternative, continuing to exhaust yourself every time conflict arises, is unsustainable. You can't keep living this way. Eventually, the depletion will force you to withdraw completely, to avoid all conflict at the cost of authentic connection, or to collapse under the weight of accumulated stress. Start small. The next time conflict arises, pause and breathe before reacting. Notice what's happening in your body. Give yourself permission to take a break if you need one. Choose one conflict that matters and address it, letting the trivial ones go. Practice one recovery ritual after a difficult conversation. Build your reserves during peaceful moments. Each small shift compounds. Over time, conflict becomes less overwhelming, recovery becomes faster, and you reclaim energy you thought was gone forever. You're not weak for being exhausted by conflict. You're human, carrying the accumulated weight of decades of unresolved tension in a world that offers little support for emotional processing. But you're also capable of change. You can learn to engage with conflict differently, to protect your energy, to recover more quickly, and to stop letting disagreement drain the life from you. The work is hard, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of this exhaustion is a life where conflict no longer controls you, where you engage with difficulty when necessary, recover without collapsing, and still have energy left for joy, connection, and rest. That life is possible, and it starts now.